I'm an utter excuse of a human being. I've done nothing to imprint my legacy onto society. Like, yeah, there was that one time I made the world's largest pizza, but then these good-for-nothings just had to come along. Everyone wants to be remembered for something. You want to make sure your short time on this earth actually had an impact of some kind, and not be lost with time like a commoner in the 1500s. But hey, at least they were able to make it through a plague. You survived a mini-plague at best. But sometimes our goals are so ambitious that our work, voluntarily or not, breaks records, and that leads to not only us, but our work being remembered for these records. What do I mean by that? Well, there's been quite a few world records broken in the history of filmmaking. Filmmaking is a very complex undertaking with so many different aspects that if you dream big enough, you're bound to break some kind of record. And I think that's a good place for us to start. Big.
Movies at times can be big. Very big. So big that despite them being put on the same screen as smaller movies, they can make it feel even bigger. What would you need to make it feel this big? Well, tons of extras first and foremost. And the movie containing the most extras is Gandhi from 1981, which had over 300,000 extras for the funeral scene. But where are you going to put all those extras? Well, a set, of course. And the movies with the largest set construction for them is the Lord of the Rings trilogy with Hobbiton. Construction took years to complete, being built across 14 total acres of a working farm, and to this day stands as a permanent tourist attraction in New Zealand.
And it also stands as a reminder of that trip to New Zealand you always say you're going to go on to go see Hobbiton, but you won't because, like, the airfare and, like, it's a super long flight, and I'm just too busy with work right now. I don't know if I can fit it in.
But sometimes, as much as we love seeing those sets, not all of them get the permanent Hobbiton treatment, and they have to come crashing down. Or blown up, rather.
The best part was when the buildings fell down.
And the biggest explosion in the movie was the Moroccan lair explosion in Spectre. However, that's just one measly explosion. The sequel, No Time to Die, holds the record for the most high explosives in a single shot, with 140 kilograms of explosives going off in one shot.
But hey, not everything has to end in a fiery hellscape. We can clap at other types of destruction.
The most cars ever destroyed in a movie was 103 in The Blues Brothers, but that was surpassed 20 years later with 104 by the... But still dealing with most, the movie with the most sequels is the Japanese series It's Tough Being a Man, which has 50 films in total under its belt. The highest grossing movie franchise of all time, however, is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, racking in over $28 billion across all of their movies at the box office. The highest grossing single movie of all time is Avatar from 2009, which made over $2.9 billion. The most watched movie, however, is another James Cameron film, Titanic. The movie with the highest grossing opening weekend is Avengers Endgame, but the movie with the longest theatrical run is Jurassic Park, which remained in theaters for 71 weeks straight.
But...
there are some movies that technically still run in some form or another since their initial release. Like The Room, or more notably Rocky Horror Picture Show, released in 1975 and still has showings to this day. Now, that would count as the longest, but those are more special midnight type screenings, so that's more up for debate.
Opinions and debates scare me. I'm going back to absolutes.
The movie with the biggest budget is Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides with $378.5 million. And something that drives the cost of a film way up is reshoots. Hey, not everything is perfect the first time. The movie with the longest development cycle is The Other Side of the Wind, as it was worked on and off for a total of 48 years. The movie with the shortest shooting schedule for a feature film was Roger Corman's Little Shop of Horror, which was filmed in only 2 days. The longest movie ever made is Logistics, which essentially just shows the production cycle of a pedometer and has a total runtime of 35 days and 17 hours.
35 days of movie. That's gotta be the second most boring movie I've ever heard of.
The smallest film ever made is A Boy and His Atom, which was completed by IBM by literally animating atoms. The movie with the most directors working on it was The Owners from 2012, with a total of 25. The movie with the most VFX shots is Bahubali: The Beginning at 4,500.
And that's something that really bogs down the development of a movie is the VFX and CG requirements are just so expensive and time-consuming. Don't think I'm ignorant to that. I've done the Blender Donut thing too.
The first movie to have CG of any kind in it was Westworld in 1973.
And that's a good place for us to pivot, going from most or biggest to first. After all, this all had to start somewhere. And does that mean the first automatically means the best or most exciting? Nope, it absolutely does not. Like so.
This is the first film ever made, but that's more of a short film. I'm giving it some slack because it was literally made by this horse tripping wires to take pictures on a bunch of cameras. You really couldn't get past GIF length back then. The first feature film was The Story of Kelly Gang, released in 1906. The first talking film of all time was The Jazz Singer.
Kind of.
Only a couple scenes in this movie have synchronized audio, with only 2 scenes having audible dialogue.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you. You ain't heard nothing.
Oh, by the way, that's the first line of dialogue ever in a movie. Isn't that fun? The first feature-length film with sound of any kind was Don Juan in 1926, which had synchronized sound effects and score. The Jazz Singer got all the attention though, because, I don't know, everybody forgot people could talk. The first all-talking film was Lights of New York, released in 1928. The first film to use color was Annabelle's Serpentine Dancer, released all the way back in 1895.
Kind of.
The film was hand-painted frame by frame to give it the illusion of color, and wasn't actually natively in color. Now, a lot of films in the early days of cinema would use a process called tinting, where the film itself would be tinted a different color to reflect different moods or locations. But again, that's not really the film in color, it's more so the illusion of color. It's the cinematic equivalent of gold salting. The first true film to be in color was The World, the Flesh, and the Devil from 1914. Just a year later, The Birth of a Nation is considered to be Hollywood's first big blockbuster film. 7 years after that, the first film to include 3D of any kind was released, titled The Power of Love. 3 years after that, the first in-flight movie, The Lost World, was shown. 1933 saw the first film shown on television, despite only like 6 or 7 people actually owning a TV at that time. In 1935, Becky Sharp was the first film to use full 3-color Technicolor. The first fully 3D film, Robinson Crusoe, was released in 1947. The first movie to show a toilet flushing was Psycho in 1960. The first movie ever released on VHS was Changjung-gyosa in 1972. The first movie to make $100 million at the box office was Jaws in 1975. Superman in 1978 had the first computer-generated title sequence. The first movie to be released with a PG-13 rating was Red Dawn in 1984. The first movie to ever show a cell phone being used was Lethal Weapon in 1987. True Lies in 1994 is the first film to have an initial budget exceeding $100 million. In 1995, Party Girl was the first film to premiere online. Titanic in 1997 was the first movie to earn over $1 billion at the box office. The first film to be shot all in a single take was Russian Ark from 2002. That same year, Attack of the Clones was the first Hollywood film to primarily be shot digitally. Olive in 2011 is the first film to be entirely shot with a cell phone. In 2012, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey was the first film to be shot at a higher frame rate rather than the traditional 24. In 2013, The Wolf of Wall Street was the first movie to be released in American theaters in only a digital format. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the first film to be shot in 8K resolution. And in 2022, The Tomorrow War is the first film to have a $200 million budget and go directly to streaming.
I think that's a good place to stop for now. I mean, for all we know, another record could be broken while this video is being made, and it'll never see the light of day. God damn it. But I think at the end of the day, it's important to see why these records have been broken. It's not that the filmmakers necessarily sought out to break these records. For the most part, it was just because they were trying to make their movies better. If something was the first or biggest of its kind, chances are they were just trying to give the audience a better experience. Sure, they probably thought it was cool that they did break that record, but they were more likely just trying to push themselves in the limits of what can be done on film. There's no doubt some of these records will be broken again, I'm sure, but I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see filmmakers push themselves, their colleagues, and the medium to its fullest potential. Now, can we please get the first movie based on a pizza mascot? I have a script ready if there's any producers watching.
Goodbye.